The obsidian lantern drifted from warp like a blade sliding from a sheath, its hull catching the faint light of distant suns as if hungry for something to cut. Within its command bridge, Commander Vaylor Frex sat poised in his obsidian throne, posture relaxed but eyes sharp, a predator reclining only because nothing yet deserved his effort. Even seated, he carried the quiet authority of someone who had never tasted defeat. His people believed war shaped character. Vaylor believed war revealed the absence of it in their enemies. And humanity, so far, had revealed very little. Status panels cast cold light over a bridge crew operating with the disinterest of clerks stamping routine paperwork. A junior officer lounged half sideways in his chair, tapping a talon against his console as he scrolled through casualty summaries. Another hummed an off-key tune, bored by another day of unchallenged dominance. 3 colonies yesterday, he muttered. One didn't even try to run. Vaylor didn't look up. They rarely do. He meant it as a simple observation, yet the corner of his mouth curved. He found their predictability strangely offensive. Even prey should strive. A communications technician lifted his head. Commander, intelligence has forwarded coordinates for the next human outpost. Estimated population moderate. Military value negligible. Which means, another officer said dryly, they'll kneel before we finish the opening hail. Mild laughter rippled across the room. Vaylor stood, stretching the tension from his limbs, and moved to the central display. The star map rotated, highlighting a blue-green planet near a major transit lane. That alone sparked the first prickle of curiosity. A colony built here. Vaylor murmured. Odd choice. Too exposed. A tactical officer shrugged. Humans are inefficient, Commander. Perhaps they desired the view. Vaylor allowed himself a short, humorless breath, his species' closest approximation to a chuckle. Prepare the standard intimidation formation. We'll give them something better to look at. Commands rippled outward. Engines roared. Weapon ports opened like eyes snapping awake. But beneath the routine movements, Vaylor felt something subtle stir. Not fear. He did not understand fear, but a faint, analytical itch. These coordinates implied either hubris or desperation from the humans. Neither impressed him. Still, the itch remained. The obsidian lantern passed into the soul outskirts with predatory grace. Vaylor leaned forward, expecting sensor readings to confirm a modest settlement. Instead, his display erupted with data, radio chatter, civilian digital noise, orbital traffic patterns far denser than any colony could sustain. He frowned. Why is there so much activity? The science officer's frills tightened. Commander, this is not an outpost. The planet filled the viewport, blue oceans, green continents, swirling white storms. Alive, vibrant, and humming with technological interference too complex for anything labeled negligible. Vaylor straightened. Identify the world. Designation, Earth. He tasted the name like something sour and unimpressive. Primary human homeworld? Why was that not specified? A hesitation. Because, Commander, the Empire believed Earth irrelevant. Primitive. Military value nearly none. And yet, Vaylor said softly, I see orbital infrastructure. Not advanced enough to threaten them, of course, but more than expected. More than any human colony had shown. He exhaled slowly, giving his crew time to process the unease seeping into their expressions. Send the hail. The officer nodded. A deep harmonic pulse vibrated through the hull, the formal Karzul demand for surrender. A ritual the Empire had used for centuries. The crew smirked in anticipation of the familiar outcome. Panic, begging, pleas for mercy. A moment passed. Then a voice, calm, steady, unmistakably human, cut through the bridge speakers. This is Earth Authority. State your purpose. The bridge froze. Not the stillness of discipline. The stillness of disbelief. Vaylor's pulse slowed, a predator sensing the first sign of something unexpected. The humans did not sound frightened. They did not ask who he was. They did not tremble. They simply acknowledged him. He spoke again, rigidening his tone. Human world, you stand before the Karzul Empire. Submit or be erased. A pause. Not long enough to imply hesitation. Long enough to imply choice. Earth Authority acknowledges, the voice replied. Nothing more. No fear. No surrender. No emotion he could weaponize. The bridge lights seemed colder suddenly. Officers exchanged uncertain glances, subtle, but Vaylor noticed immediately. The Empire's iron rule had taught them confidence, but not how to interpret quiet defiance. He turned toward the tactical display. Sensor sweep. Full spectrum. Readouts cascaded across the console. His science officer's voice trembled. Commander, detecting gravitic distortions around the planet. Unidentified shielding, enormous energy signatures, hundreds of hidden structures. And the officer's throat constricted. There is a fleet under the magnetosphere. Silence swallowed the bridge hole. Vaylor stepped closer. A fleet. Human ships. They are unlike any we have encountered. Their hull profiles are masked. Their heat signatures minimal. He watched the data stream with slow, dawning clarity. The colonies they had conquered, undefended, clumsy, fragile, suddenly felt suspicious. Too fragile. Too easy. Barely worth the fuel they'd spent destroying them. Not outposts. Bait. Commander, the officer ventured. Orders. Vaylor's mind clicked through possibilities with the precision of a craftsman inspecting a blade for cracks. If Earth had hidden this, if they had concealed so much capability from the Empire, then humanity had not merely survived their attacks, they had prepared. He replayed Earth authorities' tone in his mind. Calm. Trained. Ready. For the first time since taking command of the Obsidian Lantern, Vaylor experienced something unwelcome, a tiny, cold pressure at the base of his spine. It wasn't fear, he told himself. Merely the awareness that the game was larger than he had believed. Maintain distance, he said, voice steady though his chest tightened. No hostile action. The crew obeyed instantly, yet unease flickered in their eyes. The Obsidian Lantern drifted back, its weapons still primed, but no longer pointed directly toward Earth. The planet, in contrast, seemed to watch them with unsettling patience. The human voice returned, same tone, same strength. Karzul vessel, you are entering restricted space. Disengage immediately. A warning, not a plea. Vaylor stared at the swirling blue world below, the hidden fleet, the impossible shield signatures, and the quiet authority woven through every word the humans transmitted. The prey, he knew, could never have produced this. He felt the section of his mind that handled intuition whisper a single possibility. We were never the hunters. He inhaled, slow and controlled, forcing his instincts back into their cage. Whatever Earth was hiding, whatever facade humanity had maintained, he would uncover it. But he knew, deeply, uncomfortably, that the next move was no longer his to make. The Obsidian Lantern held position. Earth held its silence. And Vaylor Threx realized that he had not arrived at a conquest. He had arrived at a threshold, when he no longer felt certain his empire could cross. The Obsidian Lantern's bridge dimmed to a twilight hue, as if the ship itself understood the shift in fortune. Commander Vaylor Threx stood before the central display, watching the quiet world below as though it had personally betrayed him. The data streaming across the hollow table made less sense with every passing second. Earth should have been unarmed, unorganized, undefended, yet every reading contradicted that old belief. It felt like waking from a dream and realizing the shadows had teeth. A soft chime indicated an incoming intercept. Human voices again. Vaylor braced for the desperate trembling he expected from any species confronted by the Karzul Empire. Instead, the transmission revealed a conversation not meant for them, an internal human command channel. Calm, confident, alarmingly unconcerned about the warship hovering above their atmosphere. Plan Polaris remains active, a woman's voice said. Shield coverage at 93%. All assets maintain cloak discipline. Another voice responded, impatient. They took the bait, Admiral. Exactly as projected. The bridge went still. The recording played on, unaware of its audience. There was no fear. No scrambling defense. Only a rehearsed execution of a strategy that had been waiting for this moment. Vaylor leaned in. The Admiral spoke again, composed and cold. Do not provoke. Observe. We need to confirm if this is the Lantern-class flagship. Her voice was not the voice of prey. It was the voice of a hunter who had been watching her quarry for a long time. The internal message ended abruptly, and Vaylor's officers exchanged startled looks. His people were trained for certainty. This, however, eroded everything they believed. Commander, the science officer whispered, they anticipated us. Vaylor did not answer. He was studying Earth's magnetic field. Hidden among its lines, faint distortions pulsed in synchronized intervals. Not natural, not crude, purposeful. A lattice, perhaps. A shield grid. Something far beyond the primitive metal plates the Empire expected humans to hide behind. He spoke softly, more to himself than anyone else. They learned from us. Yet the deeper truth gnawed at him. They hadn't learned from the Empire's displays of strength. They had learned from exploiting its complacency. The officer closest to Vaylor swallowed. Sir, if Earth possesses technology of this scale, why did their colonies fall so easily? Vaylor finally turned to face him. Because we weren't attacking colonies. We were attacking decoys. The word came out heavy. Final. They sacrificed their own outposts to observe us. Gasps rippled across the room. To the Karzul, the idea of abandoning a world, let alone several, was unthinkable. Yet humans, it seemed, approached survival with a ruthlessness that mirrored their own, but sharper, cleaner. Calculating. And Vaylor understood then why the Empire had misjudged them so profoundly. The humans had not been avoiding war. They had been watching it. He returned his attention to the command interface and accessed the human data streams the ship had been collecting. His officers hesitated. Studying the enemy's culture was beneath them, but Vaylor needed answers. His claws tapped through files, images, and fragments of historical footage captured off open channels. Human wars unfurled in brutal succession. Trenches flooded with mud and blood. Sky-blackening firestorms of artillery. Naval clashes that tore oceans apart. Duels of stealth aircraft slicing through cloud and metal. Cities illuminated by explosions, not lanterns. Armies clashing in fields, streets, jungles, deserts. Endless, relentless, adapt-or-die violence. This was not a species unaccustomed to conflict. This was a species civilization had tried to break and failed. Vaylor felt something cold trace along the back of his mind. A species that refined itself through internal struggle would become monstrous when united against an external threat. His chest tightened in a way that reminded him of battles long past, battles he had barely survived. He lowered the display, as though the images themselves were too heavy. The crew avoided his gaze. They sensed a shift in him, a commander who suddenly questioned the solidity of the ground he stood on. "Commander," the tactical officer said quietly, "should we retreat?" Vaylor almost said yes. Almost. The word hovered at the edge of his tongue, like a betrayal. Retreat was logical. Wise. Survival-focused. Traits he valued. But the Empire had never rewarded wisdom, it rewarded conquest. If he returned with only warnings and no victories, the Council would strip him of command long before they listened to his caution. "We hold our position," he said, though the words tasted like iron. "We observe them as they observed us." He moved to the viewing platform. Earth turned beneath them, serene and beautiful in its indifference. It was maddening. No planet should look so peaceful while hiding teeth sharp enough to bite an empire. A message alert blinked across the display, this time a direct, intentional transmission from Earth. "Karzul vessel," the same calm woman's voice said, "your presence has been noted. Do not escalate. Do not approach. You are under observation." The bridge crew stiffened. The message sounded less like a threat and more like a correction, as if humanity believed they were responsible for maintaining order in this confrontation. Vaylor felt a slow, simmering irritation beneath the shock. How dare they speak with such authority? Yet beneath that irritation lay something heavier, something unfamiliar enough that he resisted naming it. Respect. Another junior officer approached. "Sir, the Council demands a status update. They insist the humans are bluffing." Of course they did. The Council believed fear was universal and weakness inevitable. They had never met a species who hid its strength well enough to weaponize perception. They had never met a species like this. Vaylor dismissed the messenger with a wave. "Prepare a full report. I will not give them lies." He paused, then added, "And I will not give them arrogance." The officer nodded and hurried off. Vaylor returned his gaze to the planet that had quietly rewritten the rules of war. He felt the gravity of choice settling upon him. He could warn the Empire and risk being ignored, or he could attempt to understand humanity before it was too late. A flicker at the edge of the viewport caught his eye. Something moved beneath Earth's magnetic veil, a ship uncloaking for only a breath, its silhouette sleek and deadly before vanishing again. A message, perhaps. A demonstration. Or a promise. Vaylor stood perfectly still, absorbing the meaning. Humans were done hiding, and his empire, blind and proud, was walking straight into a storm. The obsidian lantern drifted in uneasy silence above the world that had overturned everything they believed. Vaylor felt the narrative shifting around him, the threads of fate tightening like a net. Whatever came next would not be a simple skirmish. It would redefine both species. And for the first time, he wondered not whether his people would win, but whether they would survive. The council chamber flickered into existence around Valor in a ring of pale, holographic light. Dozens of Imperial elders stared at him through shimmering projections, their faces carved from the same stone-hearted arrogance that had carried their species across 1,000 conquered systems. Valor stood rigid in the center of the Obsidian Lantern's bridge, forced into this humiliating conference, while Earth's shadow loomed beneath his feet. "Commander Threx," High Elder Zoran began, voice thick with the weight of assumed authority, "you will explain why your fleet has halted its advance." Valor kept his expression still, because advancing would be suicide. A sharp murmur rippled through the council projections. Zoran's eyes narrowed to slits. "Your tone approaches insubordination. And your question approaches denial," Valor replied. "Earth is not what we believed. They possess technology beyond our initial assessments. They anticipated our arrival." One of the militarists scoffed. "Humans, anticipating us. Impossible." Their colonies fell like stalks of dying grain. Valor stepped forward, allowing the command feed to display Earth's shield readings, the fleet signatures under its magnetosphere, and fragments of human strategic chatter his ship had intercepted. The council studied the data with growing irritation rather than alarm. Pride made them stubborn, fear made them foolish. "I advise immediate withdrawal," Valor said. "A temporary retreat. A chance to understand them before engaging. If we attack now, we lose." Silence followed, long, cold, and heavy. Then Zoran said, "Retreat is unacceptable. The Empire does not flee from prey." Valor felt something inside him tighten. "They are not prey." "You overestimate them," the elder snapped. "You insult our strength." "Then you underestimate them," Valor answered, voice low, "and you endanger our future." For a moment, the council projections wavered, as if the Empire itself recoiled from what it heard. Then, with synchronized disdain, the elders disconnected, leaving the bridge in stark quiet. Valor's crew stood tense, eyes lowered. They had heard enough to know their commander stood alone against the Empire's blindness. A tremor resonated through the hull, small, but wrong. Valor turned sharply. "Report." The tactical officer's frills stiffened. Unidentified energy surged behind us. Before the words finished leaving his mouth, space itself tore open. A rift blossomed behind the Karzul fleet, a controlled wormhole, smooth-edged, shimmering with engineered precision no human colony should have possessed. From its luminous throat, ships emerged. Sleek, silent, countless, human. Valor barely registered his own breath, leaving him. The vessels moved with a unity that bordered on predatory instinct. No heroic formations. No slow intimidation passes. They arrived already calculating the kill. "Evasive maneuvers," the tactical officer shouted. But the humans struck first. The rear third of the Imperial fleet vanished in the opening volley, disintegrated by gravimetric lances that bypassed shields entirely. The Empire had never seen weapons shaped like this. They were surgical, almost delicate, as though humanity sought efficiency rather than spectacle. "Commander," the science officer cried, "we're surrounded." Indeed they were. Human ships enveloped the Karzul armada, not like prey cornering predators, but like a surgeon isolating infected tissue. Calm, clinical. A human transmission cut across every channel. "Karzul fleet, disengage all offensive systems. Further aggression will result in neutralization." The voice was unmistakable, the same admiral who had spoken earlier. Her tone remained steady, unstrained, almost bored. Humans, Valor realized, did not give warnings because they feared escalation. They gave warnings as a courtesy before eliminating the need for conversation altogether. "Return fire," one of Valor's junior officers demanded. "No," Valor's voice sliced through the panic. "Targeting will only provoke total destruction." The officer glared. "We cannot simply surrender." "We cannot win," Valor replied. "Look around you." Human wormhole signatures multiplied. Autonomous drones drifted into flanking positions, casting faint glimmers along their hull lines. Their movements were synchronized, not commanded. Programmed. Evolved. The Obsidian Lantern shuddered again as a nearby cruiser ruptured under a precision strike. Valor felt each tremor as a reprimand he already understood. The Empire had not merely underestimated humanity, they had failed to recognize them as an equal force until it was far too late. Valor returned to the viewing window. The once proud Karzul formation now looked like scattered debris. And Earth, distant but unbreakable, watched them with the quiet assurance of a species finally prepared to defend itself. The tactical officer's voice trembled. "They're disabling ships systematically, Commander. Not destroying. Disabling." Vaylor caught the nuance instantly. Humanity wasn't wasting firepower. They were controlling the battlefield with the least violent option possible. They fought not for vengeance, but for precision. His respect deepened into something heavier, admiration edged with dread. Another human message came through, this time directed only to the obsidian lantern. "Commander Threx," the Admiral said, as if greeting an equal rather than an invader, "stand down. Your empire cannot assist you. It will not send reinforcements. You are alone, but you are not yet defeated. Do not force us to alter that." Vaylor felt the ship groan beneath him, the vibration running up his spine, like a final verdict. He closed his eyes. He saw the Council mocking him. He saw the human fleets emerging from a realm the Karzul barely understood. He saw a war his empire had already lost before it started. "Power down primary weapons," he ordered. Gasps rippled across the bridge. "Commander!" "That is an order." The weapons dimmed. Shields flickered into standby. Engines slowed to a surrendering crawl. And for the first time in his life, Vaylor lowered the flag of the Karzul because survival demanded it, and pride no longer mattered. The human fleet halted instantly, moving from lethal momentum to motionless stillness, as if a single mind commanded them. One final message whispered through the speakers. "Good. Now we can speak." Vaylor stared into the void where his empire had once felt infinite, and now appeared painfully small. A quiet resolve settled in his chest. The war was lost, but the story was not over. Not yet, and certainly not for him. The first shockwave rippled through the Eeler Dominion's forward command deck before anyone registered what it meant. Alcan staggered, claws catching the edge of a hollow rail as every alarm in the chamber stuttered awake. The lights dimmed. Gravity trembled. Half the officers froze, not because they didn't understand, but because they did. Only one power in the galaxy could cause the Dominion's flagship to shake. Humanity had started to move. "Report," Alcan rasped. "Unknown spatial distortion. Expanding. Sir, it's everywhere. Not a battlefield breach. Not a single wormhole. A lattice of them, like someone rewriting physics on a whim." Alcan steadied his breathing. He had known this moment would come. He had warned the Council until his voice grew hoarse. Yet even he hadn't imagined it would begin with such deliberate precision. No bluster. No message. No dramatic threat. Just quiet arrival. "Human signatures?" he asked. The sensor officer's gills tightened, a reflex born of fear. "Millions." That number landed like a physical blow. Not ships, signatures. Meaning fleets composed largely of autonomous craft, ghost vessels piloted from light years away, or by machines that didn't sleep. The humans weren't deploying an armada. They were deploying an ecosystem. A communications officer swallowed. "Central Authority has issued a line-wide broadcast. They said to let it play unfiltered." For the first time since his command began, Alcan saw an officer hesitate to obey protocol, not from insubordination, but from dread. He nodded, saving her the effort. The audio cracked through the deck. A calm voice, not triumphant, not wrathful, just steady. "This is Earth Authority. You initiated hostile action against Sol territory. We are responding. We will not ask for your surrender. We will secure it." That was all. For sentences. Yet the deck fell deathly silent, because there was no promise of mercy. No threat of annihilation. Only inevitability, like a surgeon telling a patient the anesthesia was about to take effect. A tactical officer whispered, "They could have warned us." Alcan exhaled slowly. That was the warning. On the Dominion's capital world, the Council chamber devolved into panicked argument as the first human formations materialized across every major hyperspace corridor. The war table stuttered under the sheer volume of red indicators. Leaders shouted, gestured, demanded explanations. They were primitive a century ago. This must be staged, holographic deception. No species can advance this fast. They can, Alcan muttered to himself. And they did. He watched the projections flicker, like a storm front sweeping toward them. Human fleets moved with an efficiency that felt inhuman, no delays, no hesitation, as if they had rehearsed this exact campaign 1,000 times. Maybe they had. "Admiral," one counselor barked, trying to regain control of the room. "You insisted Earth posed a threat. Very well. What is your recommendation now?" Every face turned toward him, some anxious, some furious, some still in denial. Alcan stepped closer to the table, claws folding behind his back. "My recommendation is the same as before," he said quietly. "Stand down. Prepare terms of surrender." The uproar was immediate. Insults, outrage, disbelief. A few demanded he be removed from command entirely. But one elder counselor, eyes dim, voice brittle, asked the only question that mattered. Why? Why surrender before the first shot? Alcan tapped the war table. It zoomed in on a single human corvette, weaving through Dominion patrol craft with scalpel accuracy, disabling them without killing the crews. A ship moving like it pitted its targets. "Because they are not fighting us," Alcan said. "They are operating above us. They have mastered war to a degree that makes our strategies quaint." He let the silence hang before adding, "I have studied their history. Humans do not come in arrogance. They come in regret. And when they regret, they become unstoppable." Across the room, some counselors paled. Others clenched their jaws, refusing to bend. The Empire had stood for centuries. Admitting fear felt worse than defeat. A young strategist leaned in, voice trembling. But the humans offered no dialogue. "Are you certain surrender won't lead to occupation?" "Certain?" Alcan asked. "No, but resisting them guarantees extinction." The chamber fell silent again. And then the ceiling lights flickered, the unmistakable signal of incoming orbital fire. But it wasn't directed at the city. Every screen lit up with real-time footage. Human drones surgically disabling Dominion planetary defense arrays without touching civilian sectors. Their precision was terrifying. This was restraint as a show of strength. "This is their mercy," Alcan whispered. "And it is limited." Minutes later, back aboard the flagship, the full force of humanity's strategy became devastatingly clear. The wormhole lattice tightened. Human fleets encircled every Dominion stronghold simultaneously, impossibly synchronized, each move threaded through the next like some grand choreography. Dominion ships attempted evasive maneuvers, but found every path sealed, not by force, but by anticipation. The humans seemed to know where the Dominion would retreat before the Dominion themselves did. Alcan understood the message. "We have mapped your fear." His officers watched helplessly. "Sir," one said, voice barely audible, "their cruisers are asking us to hold fire. They're transmitting safe evacuation routes." The Dominion had never done that for their own enemies. Alcan swallowed the shame. "Comply. We preserve every life we can." Another alert flashed, this time from the human flagship. A secure channel opened without authorization, bypassing Dominion encryption, like it wasn't even there. A human appeared, a commander with calm eyes and a tired expression, as if he were performing a duty he wished wasn't necessary. "Admiral Alcan of the Eeler Dominion," the human said. "We acknowledge your efforts to limit casualties. Continue them. We prefer a stable transition." Transition. Not victory. Not conquest. A restructuring of the galaxy. Alcan straightened, meeting the human's gaze. "If we surrender, will you spare the Dominion?" "Yes," the commander replied. "No hesitation. We do not erase cultures. We absorb them." Absorb. The word carried a weight Alcan could feel in his bones, neither mercy nor threat, but a promise of irreversible change. The human continued. "We want you alive. Your people intact. Serve as liaison governor or diplomat. You understand your empire better than we do. Help guide the future." Alcan felt something he had not experienced since his earliest years in command. Relief, not because he trusted the humans, but because he finally understood their intent. They didn't want dominion. They wanted stability, a galaxy that wouldn't force them to awaken again. Behind him, his officers waited, breathless. The ship hummed with the tension of 1,000 decisions. Alcan bowed his head. On behalf of the Eeler Dominion, he said, "I accept." The human nodded once, solemn and almost sorrowful. "Then this war ends today." The channel closed. Outside the viewport, human ships shifted formation, less like conquerors, more like guardians taking their stations. Alcan released a final heavy breath. The galaxy had changed, and the humans weren't celebrating. They were preparing.